All right. The Good News Doctor here. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of The Good News Doctor. And today I am so excited to have a good friend of mine, Dan Metcalfe. He is an extraordinary individual that I've had the pleasure of meeting this last year and got to spend some time with him only to find out so much more about his background and about all the things that he does to empower people and find that miracle within people and pull it back out. So last week, I had everybody watch a podcast that he was on with my son Daniel. And I didn't want to go into all of those facts because it was such a powerful podcast. And for those of you that didn't see it, I'm going to list it right here on the links below this video for all of you. And I encourage you to watch that because his story is just absolutely phenomenal and truly to reveal the character that comes out in each and every one of us during these times in our life when we are pressed and when we are challenged and when we have a feat to overcome. It's extraordinary. So, a little bit of background about Dan. He was a professional soccer player, and then he went into the Royal Marines and was just about to leave to enlist. And somebody saw potential in him in the ballet field. And so he received a scholarship for a full course in the ballet world. And I forget that I don't know the name of the college that you attended, but it offered him a job with Andrew Lloyd Webber for many years, traveling on his circuit throughout the world, doing many different shows and performing live on Broadway, singing and dancing and all of that stuff, which was extraordinary background. And then he had an unfortunate injury that left him permanently disabled for a while, and he had to overcome all odds of recovery, just like myself, in really fighting that spirit within to gain all our abilities back and to fight for the life that we know we deserve to have back. And of course, he did overcome that life and then got into cycling and became a professional cyclist and actually did the Ironman. And with that, he started doing a bunch of different tournaments and tours in California, and unfortunately had another major trauma. A pole hit him in the head, which took him off his bike and rendered him disabled yet once again, and had to start over and rehab himself again from the beginning. And if not once, gosh, who would ever have to go through that trauma twice? But Dan did. He's got an incredible spirit, an incredible mind, and he's pushed his body way beyond anything that any of us have ever attempted to do. And it's that spirit that just keeps on fighting and fighting when times get tough and things are hard, that he knows how to persevere and overcome that. So he did. He overcame that again and then started a life in Hollywood producing movies, all relating around soccer. Some of you might have seen Kicking and Screaming with Will Ferrell years ago. That was one of the first films that he was able to work on, and he's done so much since then. And so I'm just so happy to have him in my life as a friend and as a guest on our show tonight. And I know that so many of you that are on the show tonight that are seeing this for the first time have had some setbacks, especially this last year in our life. All of us came into, an opportunity in our life that we thought was now and exciting, and this is the time for us to move forward. And then there was delays. And, hey, that's life. There's a lot of things going on in the world that cause hiccups and things, but we have disappointments with delays, especially when we have high expectations for amazing differences that we're going to make in so many people's lives, and then we feel like the rug gets pulled out underneath us. And so I thought, gosh, we've all struggled a lot this year, and we've had to pivot, and we're pioneers in our own way. Anytime you're start of you're part of a company that's starting, that's launching new ideas or a new platform, we have to learn to pivot. We have to be resilient. We know that, there's a lot of powers out there that probably don't want you to be successful. And so you're going to have thick skin when the going gets tough. Well, we've had a tough get along and we're persevering. And I think now we're finally at that point that things are starting to break. We're finally starting to feel our momentum over the top of the hill. So, welcome, Dan. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I really want to kind of get into your mind a little bit today and talk about for somebody that's such an extreme athlete that does an Ironman contest. I mean, this is what it's 7 in the morning until about 11 or 12 at night of just constant go, go, go. What does it take mentally to prepare yourself for such an event, that is going to take every ounce of your energy to achieve? So I know we're talking about this physically, but I want all of us, whatever the event was, whether it was going to college and trying to pass the bar or pass the boards or the medical exams or whatever feat it was that we put in front of us, there's a certain mindset that you have to be able to embrace to be able to not just tackle it, but achieve it and conquer it. So, can you speak into that for a little bit for us?
Sure. First off, welcome everybody. And it's my honor to be here, being able to talk with you, because I know that we all have challenges in life, but it's the way we approach the challenges. Our very first challenge in life, Mark, was being born. And you think about a baby being born into this world, we're straight in, can we get out of the womb? And that's a challenge. It's a survival technique. And we just think that the effort goes with the mother, which obviously the pain goes with the mother, but the baby's immediately learning survival. And then our next is, are we going to breathe? So we're used to challenges. It's just because they're behind us, even though it's part of our DNA, we forget how a baby is going to struggle. Now we're adults and suddenly we have all these other pressures on us. And if we look that we are born to heal, we're made to heal, we're born to survive, our brain is created to protect us and give us the knowledge and wisdom to be able to move forward successfully in life, as long as we get out of our way of fear and anxiety or worry that it may not work, we'll find that we'll end up going where we put our attention. So if you put your attention on failure, you'll fail. If you put your attention on your intention, you will rise to a whole nother level. So if I take that a little bit further, and as you're saying, something like the Iron Man, this is where I come from in life. It has to come down to why. Why am I doing what I'm doing? A baby breathes because it has to live or wants to live. If it didn't care or didn't have that autonomic system saying, I need to breathe, my heart needs to beat, my body temperature has to be regulated, and sometimes we need help. Actually, I sort of wrong there. And sometimes we need help to be able to, a nurse may come in, and I know I certainly got my butt spanked to help me start crying and everything. It didn't stop at birth either. It's like I wasn't the greatest kid growing up. I was challenging my parents all the time. But if we look at why we do what we do, why do you do, Mark, what you do? It's because you have a passion for helping people that's part of your DNA, that you experience what it's like not to live fully. And so now you understand other people's pain. You can't leave what you're doing because you would feel a failure. So everyone that's listening here, you've got to put why. What is it about me that does it? And there's no judgment on why, but you have to want it that badly to make it a success.
What if somebody's having a hard time finding anything in life that they want that badly? Like, like what questions do you ask yourself to find out why? I think we've been beaten down a lot. We're afraid to want something so big because we're afraid that somebody's going to take it from us or we're never going to achieve it. Again, it goes back to fear. And fear is something that is the leading cause of failure that should never be tolerated ever. But yet it gets everybody so easily with just a little bit of it. And it just comes down to like, what is it that's your why? How do we find our why? I mean, for me, like you said it, I went through it. I know what it's like to be having it all and thriving and then have my life taken from me and went from seeing 250 people or patients a week to nobody, like nobody coming to see me anymore and being in bed and living in pain. That's devastating. And so my why was I knew I could impact people if I can get better. And I know that when I lay hands on people, I'm making a positive difference in their life. And so I know the end result when I see people and their problems, I already know with the things that I know what they're going to be like 90 days out if they can just follow a few simple steps because I know what's possible. Other people don't even know what's possible necessarily with themselves, let alone their dreams. So there's got to be something that makes that why. Like, what made you want to do an Ironman? What is it about the Ironman that wanted you to do it?
Well, I think going back, first off, congratulations, because you are an inspiration. I know the impact that you make. I personally experienced the impact you make on people, myself and my girlfriend, and so many people that you've touched. But we're miracles. Birth is a miracle. Conception is a miracle. Life is a miracle. We're all miracles, either in process or wanting to happen. And when we get it in our own way, we prevent that from flowing. For example, you talk about fear. Fear freezes the brain. It stops us moving. If it fears the brain, and brain is movement, we can't move without thought of wanting to do something safely. We can fall over not wanting to do that. But at the end of the day, brain is movement, is the brain. So if you get into a situation where you have fear that controls your action, it's no different than a deer in headlights. It knows it should move, but as it freezes, because it's indecisive, it procrastinates what it knows it should do. Now the end is the car hits it. We're no different. That when we have a dream or a goal or something that comes in, or we're hesitant because of fear, we're no longer in a flow state. And when that hits you, you can't positively move forward, which means you're negating the energy needed for that miracle to happen. So when I go back and you start looking at, what's your desire? What's your why? Then you got to look at it and say, what is the recognition of self-reality? Because until we can honestly evaluate where we're at, we can't move where we want to go. So if I look at that and go, I can't find my why, I don't have a big goal in front of that, then I would say, look at the opposite. What's missing? Once you start analyzing your life and saying what's missing, for me, the ultimate goal is happiness. Whether you're looking at, your God above that wants you to be happy, whether you're looking at your spouse, your partner, or yourself, and there's nothing wrong with self-love. Self-love is not selfish. The greater you love yourself, the more you understand love, to then be able to share it and give it to people that crave it, need it, or are giving back to such a high level, you want to be able to give them the same back. So if you look at what's missing, why aren't I happy? Why aren't I successful? And success is relative to what other people think that have indoctrinated you to think. Is success money? I got tons of money, I'm not happy. Is that success? I don't have any money. I want to go and do things. I'm happy, but what's missing? I wanted to take that trip because I wanted to share it with my loved one, and now I can't fulfill it. So once you identify the why, what's missing, or make the goal the greatest. I say to people, the goal has to be greater than the effort it takes to achieve it, or you'll quit. Because every challenge is a struggle. And if it flows, anyone can do it. It has no personal satisfaction. So you've got to be curious about other things. You've got to adventure. And if you're happy with your life, and I've got friends that say, I've settled, I'm just happy. I'd like to go on vacation more, but I'm just happy. The fact they said I want to go on vacation more, but they can't, means there's something missing. Now, it doesn't mean to say you have to sacrifice your life to go and get that and lose happiness, but how do I add to what I've got?
Right.
So be knowledge, don't hope, believe. I talked about this, I believe, in the podcast with Daniel, but hope is for other people, right? I hope you have a great day. If I hope I have a great day, I've transversed onto something else that trying to give me the power. If I believe I'll have a great day, it'd be great. So honest reflection, challenge yourself, set the highest level. With the Ironman, which goes back to the question you asked, and I haven't forgotten, there's so much involved with that. I wanted to do a triathlon. I wanted to challenge myself to see if I could finish. And I could have picked, and I did smaller triathlons on the way there, just in preparation. But the ultimate was finishing that Ironman. And why? Because having gone through the challenges that I had in life, both mentally and physically, I wanted to have something that seemed out of reach that I then would have my own self-satisfaction to know the power that I had to achieve something greater than normal. And that was for the Ironman. That was my why. It was self-proclamation of my own power.
Mm. It's almost as if in my martial art background, I knew that going through the black belt testing was going to be one of the hardest challenges of my life at that time. And, but I knew by getting to the other side of that, I would gain the confidence to know that in any situation, it'll never be as bad as what I just went through. And so I'll be able to conquer any situation after that. And that's exactly what happened. Obviously I survived. Excuse me. But at the same time, token, I do have that confidence to know that, I could take quite a beating and keep getting up. So you better make it count. So,
Absolutely.
it's like you can do a lot more than you think you can, when you put your body to that task. And then
Think about
getting on the
the
other side of it, it was such a different, I mean, it's like I heard about what it's like to go from this side of the class, once you're a black belt, to sitting on the other side facing this way. You see people get it to that point over the years, but it's different when you do it for the first time. And now all of a sudden you're on the other side. It's everything's different. And you can't even put it into words until you've experienced that. Kind of like getting married. It's like, it's coming, but once it happens, everything's different. Now you're one. There is no, well, I'm going to do this as long as you do that. And it's not a give or take. It's year one forever at this point. So these goals, whether it's, black belt, whether it's Ironman, whether it's top rank in a company, whether it's I'm going to help 1 million people. Well, how are we going to do that? Let's reverse engineer how we start with one person, and then how we help two, that each help two. So now that's four, then they each help two. So, it's like, how are we going to create the momentum that it takes to achieve these goals? So the first thing was preparing our mind for the goal. So we identify, hey, I have something that I want that's greater than the effort that's going to take for me to get it. And so that keeps that so strong in front of me, like you said, that now that 1 ounce of inspiration is going to give me gallons of perspiration fighting for that 1 ounce. And so we get that into play. The second thing is now, yeah,
hang on, Mark, let me just
yes,
interrupt there and hold that second thought.
yeah,
The greater the goal, the more resistance is going to come at you from other people. You're going to hear the naysayers because they're not willing to put in the effort. So when you take a risk for a reward, the greater the reward, the greater the risk. The harder the accomplishment is going to be. So you're going to have to put more work and trust and faith into the journey you're taking, because you've used your education to step in there, and nothing's going to be easy along the way. And you're going to have challenges where the naysayers in your head, which are real voices and your own voice, begins to turn around and say, are you doing this right? And the more you listen to that and ignore your smarts, the more it begins to take over your mindset. And so if you're not having naysayers, the goal's not big enough, because most people at the highest level have taken that journey. But the majority of people don't want you to take it because they want to keep you in the same basket as them, because it makes them feel comfortable. And you would turn around when you achieve, or you go to another level and find out, I want to pivot because I got another why or a greater goal. I've learned so much that you still don't drift back into that bottom basket, if that makes sense for you.
yeah, yes, absolutely. So that goes into the next thing is, now I've committed, I'm on this path. I may have had to make a financial commitment to launch this aspect of my life. And like you said, here come the naysayers. People say, I told you so. I knew that was too good to be true. And they try to get under your skin to make you feel you made a wrong decision. But we're confident in our decision because certain things about our decision were solid. When it comes to the business that we're in currently, I've had experience with this technology for several years now. So you can't say anything negative about that because it's real. I see it working with patients. Now, everybody else that's waiting, they have to have faith. They don't have the actual tech in their hands to have the faith that I have. And so I appreciate that it can be deferred faith. They can say, well, I know people that have it and it's working for them, and I want to have that same tool as well. And so now you've committed to do this race. You're on 60 miles into your bike ride, and you're starting to have second doubts. It's like you're already cramping, you're already hurting, you realize you got a long way to go. And so, do you start listening to these things, or is it more important than ever to just block it out? Like, I don't hear you, I don't hear you, I'm not listening to the pain. It's like, I'm committed, I'm gonna get through this at all costs. Like, are there constant battles in your head through this whole day of this fight, or is it just a little bit here and there? Like, where's the fight when it comes to the middle of your journey, knowing that the end is so far away still and you're already experiencing pain?
Yeah, I mean, it all comes down from preparation. It all comes down from, for the Ironman specifically, and it's a little different in business, and we'll address that. But certainly in the Ironman, I trained so hard that on race day, I knew I could achieve it. The funny thing was, my first Ironman up in Canada, up in Penticton, I'd never run a marathon. Now, an Ironman is a 2.4-mile swim followed by a 112-mile bike ride over the Rockies, and then finish with a marathon. Well, in my training, I never ran more than 16 miles because my arch collapsed. I was in a lot of pain. So I started doing 160-mile bike rides to make sure I was covering the distance and the time. And like I said, the first time on the race, I'm going into that marathon knowing I'd never run a marathon, already with 114, 0.4 miles behind me. But it was, again, the why, but testing myself, because Lisa Nichols, a great speaker, says, quitters never win and winners never quit. And on that first day in the race in the Ironman, there's 2,000 people. They play the Canadian national anthem. The cannon goes off. We're all running in the water. I'm near the front, swimming, probably 1,900 people behind me. And suddenly some guy puts his hand in the back of my wetsuit as he's swimming, comes in, pushes me under the water to propel himself ahead. It's a competition still. And I go under the water. Now I've got 1,900 people swimming over the top of me, and I'm trying to come back up. I couldn't get back up. There was nowhere. And I'm panicking. I'm freaking out. I'm under the water. I don't have a full breath anyway to hold it because I'm in the middle of a swim. I'm exerting. My heart rate's up. My oxygen debt is greater than normal. And suddenly this peace came over me. I thought I was going to drown. But the peace settled into me where I couldn't get up. So now what I had to do, I had to look at where my safety was. And luckily I saw this pocket in amongst all these people a little way. So now I'm swimming across there, and I finally break the water. When I broke the water, I'm like, and I'm panicking. And I'm like, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't. And I stood in the water and said, I got to quit. I got to quit. That was the first time I had ever experienced that in a competition, and so close to the start line. After about 2 minutes, and most people have gone by me now, I'm way at the back, and I'm still floating in the water in my wetsuit. And I'm like, Dan, you've done all the training. What are you doing? Get back in. Even if you go slow, keep the journey, because that finish line is your target. Otherwise, you've got to start all over again in a different arena. But I've put all that work in, trust it. And so I slowly started swimming. I then started jumping onto other people's feet where I could just swim behind them, because in swimming, you can draft the same as you can on a bike. Then someone would go by, I jump on, then I started passing them, then I caught back up. And then I ended up having a great swim. The rest of the race was amazing for me because my challenge came early. Now, what I learned from this, Dr. Mark, was a champion is not someone who crosses the finish line. Because I saw a lot of people that day crash on the bike, blood, coming out of their head, taken off in ambulances. A mile from the finish line, a guy that was ahead of me suddenly froze. His whole body cramped up. He fell over. And I'm like shouting at the crowd, come and help him. Come. I was scared to stop and help him in case I cramped up. And so I saw people running out, so I kept running because I knew they'd be able to help him probably better than I could. I crossed that finish line, and I stayed at the finish line for another 7.5 hours, helping everybody that came across the finish line, because 30% of people that do the Ironman end up going to the medical tent. Those are the finishers. So let's go back. A champion is not someone that crosses the finish line. I realized that day that a champion is someone that's willing to step across the start line and take that first step, not knowing the journey ahead, and yet being able to continue to step and fight through the pain to achieve what they want. Because what you achieved with the black belt was not actually about the black belt. It was about you. Me crossing the finish line wasn't actually about finishing an Ironman. It was about my strength. And those lessons carried far beyond the sport and made me stronger in life, not knowing what was coming ahead, but knowing if I took that first step, as all your team has, they stepped over that line. That's the champion in you saying, it's time for me to take this journey that I don't know what obstacles are ahead. But as they do come in, am I going to quit and have to start again somewhere else? And all that training and knowledge that I've learned here now has to go and be redone because I couldn't take 6 months off of my training and make another Ironman. I'd have to train for another 6 months. Or am I going to stick that course, take my breath, see what's going on around me, realize we're all in the same race. I want to be part of the group that finishes the line and achieves that medal, which wasn't about the medal, it was about me. And when everybody else naysays, or you can't do it, which became my motivation rather than my degradation, that motivation carried me to that finish line where I was there for 7.5 hours helping others because I felt so great because of my preparation training. And then at the end of the day, Mark, I got back on my bike and biked 5 miles back to my hotel at the end of the day, carrying all my equipment on my back. So the human ability is amazing when we get out of our own thoughts and focus on our own power.
Wow. Yeah, that's so true. So much of everything that stops us is just between our ears right there.
But it's our past habits. That's what haunts us. It's the fear of failure or the fear that we don't know enough. But the reality is we know enough to take the next step and to take the next step. And then when I was doing that Ironman, you got the crowds cheering you on. If you find the right community, the right family that's there to support you through the struggles, you'll also be celebrating their cheering as you go through. So I look at it, you got your past fears, which is your habits. Practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent. So if every time you come into a challenge and you stop and say, there's something wrong, I'm moving on, and you don't take the time to learn, that becomes your permanent. When there's a struggle, I quit. When there's a struggle, I quit. A struggle, I quit. Quitters never win and winners never quit. Now, it doesn't mean to say that you don't have to rethink your process, but you don't need to enter a different race. So we look at it. I look at it. There's the falsehood of the messaging we're getting. You've got to give yourself the patience and not jump on societal habits. It's not working right away. There's a better way to be successful, because the ones that are telling you that is the ones normally that haven't had the success they're preaching because they need to feel they know rather than the fact that I've actually done it. Now, if someone comes in and says they're super successful, you need to be patient. You need to reevaluate where you're putting your energy of your brain. We know the brain consumes about 25% of our oxygen. So what's the messaging I'm consuming that oxygen? Is it positive? Is it negative? There's every issue, problem has a solution. Am I focusing on the problem or am I focusing on the solution? And this one thing I'm sure you can identify with as well. Sometimes getting away from the thought and going and doing something that physically challenges you removes the resistance and then releases the answer. My best thinking was always done on the bike. I'm climbing up a mountain, I'm exhausted, and suddenly this thought comes, and that's where I followed, because I've got out of the contamination and I've got out of other people's. I love this saying. I made this one up, just so you know. Okay? Get out of other people's turbulence and into your own jet stream. Right? Get out of other people's turbulence and into your own jet stream. There's a lot of contamination coming from other thoughts or outside experiences. Get back to your why and fly.
That's beautiful. So I guess it's finding out what's my jet stream. what's the thing that I love to flow in? Where is it that I want to spend my time, energy, effort? Um, being, like, where is my being? What is it that I love doing? And to me, at least at this point in my life, at one point it was, I had goals of, achieving a place in Colorado with the mountain views and a practice out there. And I've achieved all that. And then it's just stuff. Like, what was that? What was the big deal about stuff? I've been carrying stuff around from house to house to house. And it's not about stuff anymore. It's about giving back, and it's about serving others. The greatest joy is to see something in somebody else, sow that into them, and then see it come to fruition. And if it has to do with getting their health back or getting abilities back, you just can't put a price on the joy that that takes. Now, I'm not saying it comes easy for anybody. It takes work. Like you achieving all these, you know, contests and races that you've entered and being able to complete them, it takes work. You had to be prepared. You had to train. It's not like on a Sunday afternoon, like, I think my new goal is going to be an Ironman. What is there one next week? Like, let me just go ahead and try this thing. It's not that. You put a lot of effort, a lot of thought into it. Like, I think of people that want to climb Mount Everest. Like, first of all, it costs like $100,000 just to let you do it. I didn't realize how expensive it was. And then a lot of people don't make it down. A lot of people, that's the last thing they ever attempt in their life because it is that dangerous and it's extreme. And so they really have to have a strong why. Well, I know that so many people in my world are doing what we do because there's too many suffering people out there that don't know that there's options, easy options that they can find that would radically change their health. And they're just so stuck in the sickness model of what does my insurance cover? And outside that, they don't know and they don't look because they don't think they can afford, but they couldn't be more wrong on all three accounts. It's like to sometimes get your body healthy and well is a lot less expensive than trying to keep it medicated and masking symptoms the rest of your life. It's either you're going to put some time, energy, and effort into your health now and maintain a healthy body the rest of your life, or you can ignore it for a little while and save all your money, but you're going to have to spend it all on trying to regain your health later. And so you decide, where do you want to put that money? Do you want to put it in trying that last ditch effort to get any quality of life back later, or spread it out now throughout your life and have this amazing quality of life that we all know about? And we've been fighting really hard our whole life. I mean, I look at the education that my parents gave me, and they always preached, hey, when you're 80 years old, what do you want your lifestyle to be? Do you want to be having to have everybody feed you and take care of you around the clock and laying in bed all day? Or do you want to still be playing pickleball 5 days a week and independently flying and driving and doing everything all over the globe because you still have the health of a 50-year-old? That's me. Like, I wanted to be that guy. And my parents talked about it. And now I look at my mother at 80 years old and she's amazing. And she lives alone and she's independent and she can do all these things. And I'm like, you know what? I got 50 and 60-year-olds that are in old folks' homes because their health is so poor that it just bottomed out and it's too late for them. And of course, we know so many people that had that whole tragic sudden death problem, didn't know that was coming. And, it's been very tragic. We've lost so many friends and so many people over these last few years. And so, our health is our number one asset. And if you're not taking care of it, it's going to catch up to you and you're going to realize it's too late. And so, I appreciate all the wisdom that we're sharing and that you've shared with me. I try to find ways to inspire myself in all the things that I do. And it's like, are my goals too little? Are my goals too big? Sometimes I'm accused of having goals that are too high in the sky and they're never going to happen. And you
Make
got
them
to
higher.
stop talking that way. And I'm like, listen, that's what drives me. If I can't be having goals that are untouchable, what's the point? What gets me off the couch? I have to be driving towards everything in life. And if, like you said, if they're not high enough, you don't try hard enough. And so everything to me is obtainable. I've done the impossible on more than one occasion. You've certainly done it on more than one occasion. And when they say impossible, I'm like, impossible to who? Nothing's impossible to God. Nothing's impossible to my chemistry within. I mean, it's creating 65 quadrillion chemical reactions in the dark every second. I go with that guy. He's pretty smart. And so it's just all about really the hardest thing in life, I think, is controlling the thoughts that you're allowing yourself to think. And nobody can make you feel any kind of way unless you let them. That's something that we've told our kids and that we've told our spouses over the years, and they don't like it when I say that. They get actually defensive and upset pretty quickly when I say that because they're saying, well, you're making me feel this kind of way right now. And I'm like, I'm not. Nobody can make you feel any kind of way unless you let them. And so it's like a humble person doesn't get offended. Okay, that's another one that I've learned over the years. And Jesus doesn't get offended. And so it's just interesting and how so much of everything is psychological. And when it comes to these elite athletes, it's like your whole world is psychological. You cannot train that hard. You cannot recover and overcome the obstacles and then compete and keep competing and fighting harder and harder to beat your last score and your last score if you don't have the mental ninja-ness that it takes to overcome the perseverance and the objections that keep getting thrown at you and the fiery darts. And I think you hit the nail on the head earlier when you're saying that if your goal isn't big enough, you don't have people objecting with you that you're doing the wrong thing. And so, and if it was really easy to obtain, guess what? Everybody would do it. And so it's okay if it's going to be difficult and if it's going to be challenging and if we have to wait a little bit and if they have to pivot and change the game and the plan that's in front of us, that comes with the territory. It's who's changing you. Are you going to let them and their actions and other people's stuff change the way that we think? Not a chance. Because I know from your last talk really resonated with me with my son that it's my character inside that keeps me standing. It's not, my obligation. It's not, well, I committed to this, so I'm gonna stand here. No, it's just who I am. I believe in the commitments I make and the decisions that I make. I don't have guilt about them. I don't look back with regret. I make a decision and I stand firm. And that's who I am and why I do what I do. And so I think of all the hardships and I look back and said, you know what? We're going to have hardships, but it's not going to shake my character. I'm going to stand tall through it all. And I will be the last one standing if that's what it takes, because I'm not going anywhere. I am deemed for success in this life, and I've known it from the beginning. And if that success means helping a million people find their health back, then that's what it's called. It's not about money. I'm not driven by dollar signs in one eye or in both eyes. Yes, we all need money to make life go around. And the more we have, the more choices we have, and the easier life can be for a lot of people that we choose to bless with all of that. But really, you have to have that purpose. If your purpose isn't sound and it isn't strong, then the money's not going to follow it, right? And so it's not the money that motivates you, it's the integrity of the purpose, it's the character of what's driving the purpose. And if it's true, you're going to find a lot of people that have been waiting a long time for somebody to come along that has that same purpose, and they felt something inside of them, and then now you've inspired them and they want to lock arms with you. I'm sure that, all these Olympic athletes and professional athletes that win Stanley Cups and, all the different acclimates for each sport for winning the season finale. I'm sure that inspires and motivates so many children at home. They feel like they're winning it right there with them. and they're visioning themselves someday playing on that team and someday holding that trophy up and and holding that gold medal. It's like they're not just winning it for them, they're winning it for every child that has dreams and hopes of being the best athlete that they could ever be. It's all coming to fruition for the entire planet that loves the Olympics and that loves the sports. And so it's so much bigger than any one of us. All we can do is continue to live by integrity and have the character that we know is representing who we really are, and don't let it break so easily over something that the world is trying to wedge into your life and stump you up or trip you up or confuse you or steal away your dreams, for worst case scenario, or convince you that your dreams were never that good in the first place, or they were never big enough to be worthy to obtain. That's a bunch of nonsense. And so many times when I find myself at a crossroad, like I really wanted this to happen, now it looks like I'm going to have to pivot, and it might not happen at the time that I wanted it to happen, no matter what it was in my life. I look back and saying, now, is this fear guiding this decision, or is this faith? And in most of the cases, it was fear that was trying to stop me to change my thought and to give in. And when I said, you know what, I'm not gonna stand for that. Fear is never going to be the thing that guides my decisions, because it should never be tolerated for anybody. And I would stay strong. I would hold my ground. And you know what? I'd pass that exam. I get my license. I get whatever it was that I was struggling with that day. And I had to make a big decision. I would stay strong, and it would always hold true. And so I encourage you. So many of you have struggles in your life. You've had things that you've committed to that now you're questioning, do I stay committed? So let me ask you, Dan, when somebody quits on one of their goals, is that a reflection of their character, or when is enough enough? Like, when is it okay to quit and not judge yourself and say, I guess I'm going to start over again somewhere else? It's like, that's a hard pill to swallow when you've put so much energy into anything, and then you're deciding to quit. I mean, is that the word we use? Or we're going to say, you know what? I'm going to change my season. That season I was doing that. I feel that my next season I need to accomplish something different. I mean, so where is the mentality to never feel like a quitter if I do need to change direction? Or maybe it's time to stop. Maybe I need to stop before there's irreversible physical damage from me completing this race. I mean, do people actually push their spot too far because their mentality is so strong that they don't listen to the warning signs of their body and then actually hurt themselves? I mean, is there a fine line here that we need to address?
The power of the body. You've heard the stories of the mother whose child's stuck underneath the car, and she picks the car up and gets so they can get the baby out, or the child out. She shouldn't be able to do that on a society's level, because we judge relative to what we know. Our power is infinite. I was talking with a friend of mine who trains top professional NFL players. I go in there and there's a bunch of players from the Clippers that are down there training. Great guy. And he was telling me about how he had the special forces come in and trained. And the special forces, he did all the evaluations and testing for the highest level of the military. He couldn't get them to quit, even when they were struggling. And a professional athlete would stop at some point. Whereas the mindset, because it's life and death with the special forces, they wouldn't quit. He had to stop them, and they refused to stop. No, you have to stop. So it's okay, the test is over, you achieved it. Just to get them to stop, because their mindset is their inner power. So we want the power. But I take it back one step. There's nothing wrong with money being your motivation, because there's a lot of people that go into a business or go and set in because they want financial freedom. They want to have the freedom to live without the stress of money. It comes in there. So I don't see money. There's the old saying, money is the root of all evil. It's not. Greed is the root of all evil, right? Money gives you the freedom to achieve your goals and go above what you thought your goals were and help more people, because now you have a greater outreach. So if your motivation is money, there's nothing wrong with that, because that's self-gratifying if it's to do more. If it's just to get more and hoard it and not help other people, that I think is the wrong motivation. But if you can take what you earn and make, I say to people, how much is enough? Right? At what point is enough? Everyone says, oh, if I had 30% more money, I'd be comfortable. You would if you stayed at that lifestyle. But as soon as you get 30% more money, you up your lifestyle. Now you're
That's
living
right.
on the edge again. And we keep going. So when you say what is enough, enough is where you're happily contributing to your why. And then anything more than that becomes the bonus that either allows you to take that extra trip, buy that car that you've always wanted, because there's nothing wrong with having a car that you love, right there. But am I doing it for self-gratification and ignoring other things inside me that need to give? So when you say, Mark, at what point do you realize what's going on? I call that pivoting rather than quitting, if it's for the right reasons. If it's for the wrong reasons, in other words, fear, lack of education, lack of patience, listening to the wrong voices that are not educating you and increasing the fear, then that I call quitting. But as I talked about before, every level has its own devil. In a situation where a company is launching, and I've done this before, I worked as a spokesperson for Under Armour for 10 years. I had stock in Under Armour, the company crashed. I still believe in the strength of the company to rebound because of the power behind it. But look at Tesla. I have a friend of mine that went down to a meeting with Elon Musk down in LA when the press were trashing him. His cars didn't come out. People had invested for a release. He's now a year behind, 2 years behind. And Elon Musk stood in front of the crowd and said, you want your money back? Take it back. I'll give it back to you. I don't want you to be unhappy. But I won't launch a product at the level that I'm saying until it's ready to be launched, because then I'm letting you down greater than the money you've invested in. Some people took their money back and other people doubled down. They ordered a second car. Then they got more stock, because during a struggle, the expectation is lowered, but the foundation is still high. And those people that asked for their money back and were angry and went out, when the Teslas were launched, they couldn't get the Tesla because they had dropped out. And now people saw the success and they're all jumping back in again. But the faith has to be in the project, in the company, in the belief of the company. And we get caught up between the difference of delays and money taken. If the proof is there and you can see the structure and it's just delayed and I've invested my money, the biggest investor in my company, he went in and bought a second car at that meeting. And he stood up in front of the crowd when the press were there, the TV cameras, and says, I believe in you because I believe in your mission. I believe in what you're trying to do and you're not going to fake it. And if there's pivots that need to happen, I know you're going to make it for the good of the long term in the company, not in the immediate gratification. And he made a ton of money on investing in Tesla at the lowest point. And when people tried to get back in, you saw it with Amazon. You see it with all these different companies, Google, that come out, people that got in early, stuck through the doubt, invested their emotions. They were the ones that walked away with the greatest profit, and no one could ever catch them. So what's quitting? What's character? Character for me is education. It's seeing the reality. It's educating what we're seeing in the reality. So I look at it as mindset, mind reset, mindset, mind reset. We never have a mindset that's forever going to stay the same unless we want to go back to the archaic ages of when it was right. So we add the knowledge. Okay, now I got the knowledge. This is now my mindset. So keep learning, keep educating. But the character part in here is, am I strong enough with the education I have to stick the course and be the champion stepping over the start line, rather than I've got to finish to find out whether I'm a champion or not. And again, if you surround yourself, every level has its own devil. You put yourself with people that are trying to raise you up and not those that are trying to pull you back. That's when you get past the devil of thought. And now you got a new mindset, you got a new education, you got a new leadership. See, the greatest teachers, and I said this before, are not the ones with the most students. The greatest teachers are the one that create the most teachers. The teachers then become the leaders. The greatest leaders are the one that creates the most leaders. Are you leading or are you following? And when you establish yourself as a leader within the group that then leads more groups, that creates more leaders into the group that then create their own leadership, Look at the power you've had. I've always said destiny is out of our control when we step back and remove our ego. So there's a mother walking down the street with a little girl. A homeless gentleman steps out of the bushes looking really rough and walks by and just says something because he's going through his own suffering. The girl freaks out. She jumps out the way. She holds onto her mum's hand with fear and she walks away. Now that's imprinted. She now becomes so determined to never be homeless that she studies and she ends up going to medical school. She comes up with the cure for cancer. No one will ever turn around and say that homeless guy, his impact changed the world. But it was his action and her engagement and interaction that changed the destiny of the world because of something that came along. There was a fear moment that drove to a higher success that wouldn't have been there if it hadn't have been for that homeless guy. And he'll never know. He'll never know the impact he had. But that's where destiny comes in. So when you have a struggle, look at the lesson. I talk about this all the time. Everything we confront in life is a lesson. And until we learn that lesson, that life is trying to teach us, we will always suffer at a level beneath our potential. Getting a little bit heavy here. I love to go deeper into this because this really is the mindset. This goes into our synapses. This goes into our messaging. This goes into where we step and go in life. Because if we stay where we're at, we're going to suffer for the rest of our life at the things that are making us suffer now. And think about it. Think back to your first day on the job, at our first job. We were nervous. We were scared. We're in there. I want to get it right. I'm there. I worked at McDonald's. I go in there. What's the register do? How do I make the burger? Can I flip it at the right time? The fries, the buzzer's going off. How do I put it? Did I pack it right? Did I get the perfect squirt in there of the fish fillet? Right? All the different things. I'm nervous. 2 weeks into it, I'm like, oh my God, this is so boring. Right? I'm more than this. Where are we in life? Where are we? As you learn, those nerves go away, but the job's still the same because I learned the system, the process. And what happened was my neurological pathways changed from fear or nervousness to I got this. So as you educate yourself and you go deeper into it, your synapses, your messaging, those neurons will fire in a completely different way in exactly the same situation. And now you have the power and the others or the voices or the fears no longer have the power. And if you need to pivot, that's great because you've got enough knowledge to know what's right and be a leader.
Forever student. I'm always a forever student for that exact reason. You don't ever want to get too used to thinking you know it all. And a lot of problems, a lot of these doctors that I work with, a lot of the old school doctors that have been around for a lot of years, they're still doing the same protocols, same scenario that they did 2 decades ago, and they're failing to pivot and keep up with the things that we've learned, so
And they're letting their patients down, Dr. Mark. You're letting your
they're
patients
stuck
down.
in their ways. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's better, and our job is to find better. No different than if someone is putting fear into you because of their lack of, look at the source. What's the success? What's the knowledge in that area if you're listening to the wrong things? But if you're listening to the right people that have the experience and knowledge, they can help you rise up. When I work with Mark Burnett, who owns Survivor and The Apprentice, Celebrity Apprentice, used to own Shark Tank, all these different shows, The Voice, greatest TV producer, in my opinion, of all time. He always says, surround yourself with people better than you.
100%.
He goes, because we don't have time as individuals to be the best at every aspect. So a great businessman will bring in a fantastic accountant. He doesn't know the same amount because I got too much to do here. You go do your work. I trust you. If you don't trust them, fire them. If you do trust them, let them lead that department. And again, in here, put your expertise. A great salesman doesn't need to do the fulfillment because then he can't sell. A great doctor doesn't want to sit there and be doing what the registration side does. You have someone that's great at running your front office. You want to focus on what you got. So again, looking back, and you surround yourself with people that inspire you, that raise you up, that lift you, that support you, that have your interests. Everyone in my soccer teams, I would say to them, I'm preparing you for another coach. This isn't my ego. I'm going to make sure you can play for somebody else. I'd say to my coaches in my nonprofit organization, what's your goal? If your goal is to stay here the rest of your life, I don't want you as a coach. You may stay. That's great for me. But if then you settle, how are my players getting more? Because you got to drive yourself to be able to drive those who want to go higher as well. And if you've got your own dreams, you will lead others to higher dreams. It's a beautiful world we live in. It's an amazing time because there's so many challenges. If that's why I love the imagery. You'll never get stronger walking downhill. Think about it. The momentum, gravity is taking you down. You're actually working on resisting. And so you may get a little stronger in the resistance coming back. I feel it in the front of my thighs. My toes are hitting the front of my shoes. They start getting blooded. But I will get stronger walking uphill. And at the mountaintop, I want that plateau. So now I can look at the next horizon I'm going to conquer. So if we have challenges in life, if we have challenges in business, well, that's our uphill. When we get there, we've achieved more than the end result itself.
So what you're saying is the mindset is far more important than the physical ability. Keep the mindset going, the body will follow. Your body's a machine. It wants to work for you. And if it has a goal, it's working doesn't seem as hard.
And you
If
got to
you
love
don't
it.
have a clear, defined goal, all the work you're putting your body through can seem twice as hard. And
Professional
so
athletes, I'd say to them when we're training, how much of performance is mental? Any
90%.
any top coach would tell you
Yeah.
80 to 90% is mental. And we're all the same. We wake up in the morning, I'm so tired, I don't want to get up today. The chances are you won't have a great day. But if you wake up and say, you know what, I'm tired, but I'm going to make this a great day, you'll have a much better day. If it's 90% mental, imagine what the body can achieve if we let the mental direct it, guide it, lead it, instead of, oh, my back's hurting, I can't do this. No, you know what, my back is going to get better. I love my back. It's a success story happening right now. Whatever you give love to thrives. And I talked about this before. Whatever you abuse declines. You reject it, it will reject you. So for me in a business, and I've struggled in I've been very fortunate to have multiple businesses that have been very successful. Every time there's a challenge, I either got to turn around and say, I can't stand this business. As soon as I say I can't stand this business, and I mean it, because there's moments where I've had to rethink what's the lesson. If I really don't, move on, because you're going to kill the business. The business won't kill you. You'll kill the business because of your attitude. If I love the business and it's not working, all it's saying is I'm going to give you more depth of knowledge before it starts to succeed, because now I'm a stronger leader. And now I can work with my clients better because I understand the inner workings more than I ever had. They say the greatest, CEOs were the ones that started in the mailroom because they understood every aspect of the business. It didn't flow. So when you're at the top and something goes wrong, it would destroy you if you haven't learned the steps along the way. And nothing great lasts forever. Nothing great ends happily if you stop working at it. You'll hear the stories. People make millions of dollars and then they lose it all. Why? They didn't have enough depth and character to maintain it. They got comfortable. We know comfort is the biggest obstacle to continued success. And yet it's okay to rest and enjoy the journey. But don't forget, like you said, always staying a student, always looking, stay curious. Eleanor Roosevelt said it beautifully. Stay curious. Don't take your
Ever
place.
since your last podcast, I keep waking up every morning and I say, I love my brain. I talk to my brain more often now.
Isn't it amazing though, the
Yeah.
effect that it has? We think it's a joke, or we think it's something, but when you actually do it, you realize I love my brain. It's amazing. You're giving
Yeah.
it up. It's going to give back tenfold whatever you give it, because it's there to serve you and make you the greatest you possibly could be. Let me add one more thing in here, because I don't know how much longer we're going to go on. But
Yeah.
people always say, "What? How great you're! I want to be the greatest I can be. I want to be the greatest I can be." Kids, I want to be the greatest I can be. Well, let's train you. Let's try and get that. And I'm trying to train these younger kids, and they're not really getting it. And I'll say, imagine you're Ronaldo. Do it like Ronaldo. Do it like Messi. Everyone in America now knows Messi because he's playing in Miami. Suddenly the kids changed. I didn't tell them what to be. I gave them an example, but they already knew in their mind how to be greater because they've witnessed it. People don't want to be a better version of themselves. They actually want to be someone that they emulate and like them, because we look across into that. And we're all the same. But when I say to athletes, what do you want to be? I want to be the best I can be. That's the politically correct, society correct way of saying, I'm going to fit in at my highest level. And those that fit in never stand out. I say to them, no, you will never know how great you can be because nobody knows. So try and be number one. See that person, try and get higher than that person. You will max out at your talent, which is way greater than your physical, because there's the X factor, which is your brain, your mind, your thought process that drives you higher than your body says you can go. So if we can tap in and say, I'm going to try and be the best I can be by trying to be the best, now you will find out what the best you can be. When you had Roger Bannister with the 4-minute mile, nobody could beat 4-minute mile. The day he beat it, the next year, I think it was 9 people beat the 4-minute. They couldn't do it before he did it. He led the way, and they said, oh, it's possible. Now it went on.
Everybody did it, yeah.
And so now the 4-minute mile, you can't even qualify for the Olympics at a 4-minute mile, right? So we look, all that changed was the mindset because someone said it.
Yeah.
And so be the best you can be by being number one. But remember, if you settle for second, you'll never finish higher than third because someone's still trying to be first. So keep that energy, keep that passion for life. And it's okay to rest and recover. You don't have to keep driving yourself. You can burn out. But recognize, is it burnout or is it lack of motivation? In which case, my dream isn't big enough. If it doesn't scare you, it's not big enough. And at the same time, at the same time, if you're not motivated, you won't achieve and you're wasting time.
That's awesome. Well, I'm going to have you back for another episode, Dan. We've talked a little bit over an hour here, so
thank you
we'll
so
go
much.
ahead and wrap it up for tonight. I appreciate your time as always. I could just hang out and talk to you all day. We have so much that we could share with each other and so much in common. So I appreciate you, and all of my viewers appreciate you. And if there's any last, anything you want to say, what's your favorite quote outside the ones you've already shared with us? If there's anything that comes to mind.
For sure, it's the one my dad said to me. I didn't have a great relationship with my dad growing up, but he was always my hero. And the day before I started dance school, which was a huge change from, being at professional soccer clubs to then looking to go into the Royal Marines after 8 years of cadet training, to then suddenly going to this dance school. Before I found out I could sing and act, which put me into Lloyd Webber shows. I went and saw a show, and at the end of Starlight Express, and actually you can just see, there's a picture of me behind. That's one of my greatest moments in life. But at the end of the show, he says, what do you think? I said, oh, it was amazing. It was incredible. This is the greatest. I'm blown away. He says, one day you'll do this show. And I said, no, I'll never be good enough. And these are the words, 8 words. Somebody has to do it. Why not you? That's my favorite quote. I live my life. That's why I've never seen roadblocks. I've just seen obstacles, and everything is an opportunity. So somebody has to do it. Why not you? In your business, somebody is going to be successful. Why not you? Someone's going to stay the path. Why not you? Somebody will quit. Don't let it be you.
Very well said. Thank you so much, Dan. Thank you so much, everybody else, for joining us this evening. And until next time, everybody have a great night. Bye now.